Hello, and this time we're looking at inequalities, but when you draw them on a graph, so sort of like regions on a graph. And you might remember when you're drawing an inequality on a scale, so you might have a beautifully drawn scale like this, where you've got 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., minus 1, minus 2, you get the idea. And let's say you've got the inequality x is greater than 3, and so that is this sort of area here, greater than 3. But because it's a strict inequality, you draw an open circle. You can't stand, it's like a hula hoop. You know, if you tried to stand on 3, you'd fall through the hoop. If it was greater or equal to, that's when you colour in that circle. It's solid because you are allowed to stand on it now. So it's the same thing when you're drawing regions. It's just that, just get rid of those. It's just that on regions we're drawing on a graph. So here I've got 4 inequalities, and we can see here that this goes, it's a vertical line. If you forget for a moment we're talking about the inequality, the whole region I mean, what's the equation of just this line? Well, this line would be x equals 5. It's a vertical line, goes through 5, it's x equals 5. But it's an inequality I've shaded in. Now I'm not sure, because it isn't written from the question, do I want the bit that's shaded, or have they crossed out, shaded the bit they don't want? So that you have to read the question very, very carefully. Let's say in this situation that we want the purple side. There's just a bit more clear. So we want this side. This side has smaller x values than that boundary of 5. That's a value of 1, and that's on the side we want. 1 is smaller than 5. So it's going to be x is less than 5. That's the purple side that we want. X is less than 5. Do I put an equals on? No, I don't. Just like I would fall through the hula hoop if I stood on the 5 when it was a strict inequality. A dotted line means don't tread on the actual number 5. Yeah, you can't tread there, it'll break, you'll fall through. So this is a strict inequality. If it's a solid line like we've got down here, then you get the equals because it's strong enough to support you when you're on that line. Now if they give you the equation of the line, well, this is nice and easy. X plus 2y equals 8 is the equation of that line. So we can actually just write that down. X plus 2y and an 8. And now we just need to decide, are we bigger or smaller? And the fact that it says, you know, blah, blah, equals 8, we can just look and say, okay, well, all these points equal 8. If I'm higher than that, then I've got a bigger y and a bigger x value. It's going to equal a bigger number. And if I want the purple side, it's therefore going to be greater than. Of course, if you wanted the white side, it'd be less than, because, you know, it's just either side of the line. So you just got to think to yourself, you know, and if you're not sure, always just try 0, 0. Okay, so I don't want 0, 0. If you substitute that in, 0 plus 2 times 0, well, that equals 0. Is 0, what is 0 to 8? 0 is less than 8. I don't want this side, so I don't want the less thans, so I want more than. Okay, it's always useful just to try 0, 0, and then see, you know, if it's where you want it, then you agree with that inequality. If it's less than, you write less than. And if you don't want it, and this is less than 8, then I obviously want greater than, because I don't want it, I want the other one. When there's 2 inequalities like this, you have to write 2 inequalities. So if you have 2 regions, I mean, you need 2 inequalities. X has to both be bigger than the 8, so y has to be greater than 8, strict, because it's a dotted line, and it also has to be less than 3, so y has to be less than 3. If it was the other way around, if I wanted the white bit bound by 2 inequalities but 1 region, then you can write it as 1 inequality. Y is less than 8 but greater than 3. That's okay to do that if it's 1 inequality, but you can't do if it's 2. I know what you're saying. You say, oh, I could write it as 3 is greater than y is greater than 8. The problem with that is that it should make sense, and if you just ignore that for the moment, you're saying 3 is greater than 8, which it's not. So you kind of like, yeah, it kind of breaks it. So please don't do that. If there's 2 inequalities, then 2 inequalities. Now this question shows why you shouldn't do shading for the bit you want. It's better to always leave the bit you want as not shaded, because we've got some overlaps here. We've got this this equation, and therefore this inequality is here, and then this one, and all of this is what we want. And then what? Do we want the one with double shaded? And then the way they've coloured that, it looks like this is the double shaded. So it all gets confused. Whereas if you want, if you colour in the side you don't want, then I don't care if they overlap. I'm left with the bit that I want. So if you're doing this in a GCSE exam and you draw 3 lines like this, you generally shade, I don't want that bit, I don't want that bit, I don't want that bit, and the bit that's left there, blank, is the region that you want. So I think for this one, in order for it to make sense, it would make more sense to say, what is the region of the white bit? Well, it gives us the equations. It doesn't give you the equations, you need to work out the equations, and that's the content of another video, is how to do that with either in this form or in, with gradient and plus c. But they've given this one to us, so this is x plus 2y equals 6. I want to be lower than that line, so it's going to be x plus 2y is less than or equal to, because it's a solid line, 6. But I want to be higher than this line here. I want to be above it, on the vertical axis above it. So we're going to say 2x minus y is greater or equal to 2, to be above that line. And again, it's got the equals because it has a solid line. If they did give you an inequality and ask you to draw it, the trick is to draw the line. So work, either in this method with maybe the cover-up method, or maybe you rearrange it for y equals and then plot coordinates. But you draw the actual line as if it said equals, and dotted or solid, depending on whether it's a strict or not strict inequality. And then you've just got to decide which side do I want, and either highlight it if that's what you've been asked to do, or cross it out and label the side you want with an R, which is more standard. There's a good chance that if you give these questions a go, you'll sort of falter slightly. You do need to sort of have done quite a few to sort of get the knack of it. So, persevere. If the first one you look at, you're not quite sure, think about what's the equation of the line, which side do I want, and you can always try a coordinate if you're not sure. Any questions, pop them in the comments, but for now, cheerio.